Welcome to this week's edition of SU First and 10. I'm Parker Weston, and joining me this week are Sean Thistle and Trevor Buffington. This past weekend, our two Super Bowl teams were decided, and they were the Pittsburgh Steelers and surprising Arizona Cardinals. What are your guys' thoughts on these two teams and their wins this past weekend?
Well, first I'd like to start with the Arizona Cardinals. You can't really complain how they played in the playoffs. They had a slow, I guess you could say, a couple of games into the playoffs. They got blown up by the Patriots. The Eagles beat them on Thanksgiving. It was kind of ugly, and everyone was saying they didn't deserve them to be in the playoffs. 9-7, they had a terrible division. But what's been the big factor right now is, I think, Kurt Warner and the fact that they've been running the ball. I mean, in the championship game, they surprised everyone. He only threw the ball 28 times and completed 21 of them. He did well against the blitz, at least his offensive line did, and it gave him time to throw. And Larry Fitzgerald, you can't say enough about him. The guy had a tremendous game. I mean, the biggest thing I think in that game was not just the first half. The fact in the second half they were down. They're getting beat. The Eagles were up 25-24, and they're looking ugly. And they just had that last drive. There's just about 8 minutes, and that's all they needed in the second half. And Kurt Warner led them to that. And I think that was the biggest thing of that game. That's the thing that took the Eagles out of it.
What you said, Sean. I mean, the Cardinals were up 24-6 after halftime, and then the Eagles came back, went up by a point, and you got to give it to Kurt Warner for taking his team down the field and going up for the go-ahead touchdown, and then putting his team up by 7 points by converting the two-point conversion. And in the AFC Championship game, the Steelers, they just got the job done. No one gave them any credit. No one thought that they could win 3 straight, but they got the job done at home, and they're advancing to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing about the Steelers was the question of Big Ben's health. He had the concussion late in the season, the very last game actually, and everyone was wondering how he would do, and he did all right. He had a good game, they had a good balance, and the defense, again, played like Steeler defense. I mean, they didn't allow too many points. They stepped up, and Troy Polamalu with another interception in the postseason, just another thing to his great, I guess you could say, his great run there in Pittsburgh. So a great game by the Steelers. They deserved it. But 2 great games this past weekend.
But the other big story, though, during the game was definitely the argument on the sideline between Anquan Boldin and the offensive coordinator, Todd Haley, over the play calling of what turned out to be the game-winning drive. Then after the game, he did not take part in the post-game celebration and instead went in the locker room. What are your guys' thoughts on his rant?
I think he was wrong in so many ways. I think Larry Fitzgerald was getting the job done. Anquan is probably just as deadly. Maybe not as potent, but I think he's still good. But yet, Fitzgerald was getting the job done. They were running the ball. They were doing what they needed to do. Remember, this guy pulled his hamstring just a couple of weeks earlier. There was no need for him to go out there and hurt himself. They were clearly just trying to save him for the Super Bowl. The game was just about wrapped up. If they really needed him, they would have thrown him in there and been able to go further. But they didn't need him. There was no need for him to do that. The coaches make the decision, not him. When the coaches need him, then it's his time to take part in the game and do what he needs to do. But he wasn't called upon. He should have sat down and kept his mouth shut. His team was doing well. There's no need to do that. And the fact that he didn't participate in the celebration, that's just wrong. That is your team right there. That is a team that has been with you through bad and ugly, and now look where they are in the Super Bowl. There's no reason to pout about that. You're in the Super Bowl. He should have been with the team.
People just make this much bigger than it's come out to be. I mean, it's in the heat of battle. Anquan Boldin, he obviously is coming off the injury, so he wasn't as effective as he was in the previous game, and it was right in the middle of them driving down the field, and Anquan Boldin's obviously upset because he's one of their star players, and I don't blame him for yelling at Todd Haley, and I don't blame Todd Haley for getting mad either because Anquan Boldin was clearly hurt that game.
Well, I still don't think that gives him the right, though, to be yelling at the coach. He's the one who calls the plays. He's the one who makes the decisions. If you don't like it, tough, There's no need to do that in the middle of a drive, in the middle of a big, important game to do that. It's just ridiculous. He should have waited till another time.
Now, switching over to college football, last week Mark Sanchez declared himself eligible for the NFL draft. His coach at USC, Pete Carroll, though, went off of him for leaving. How do you feel about Pete Carroll reacting this way?
I think it was absolutely wrong. There was no reason to. I think Pete Carroll has good advice. He has great advice. He's helped a lot of quarterbacks do pretty well in the NFL. But to go out there and say those things about Mark Sanchez, it was not right. It's Mark Sanchez's decision no matter what. He is not in charge of him. He does not make the decisions for him. Mark obviously wanted his advice. He didn't like it. He made his own decision. There's no need to go out there and say, hey, I don't like what he doesn't have to agree with it, but to go out there and do what he did the way he did it was absolutely wrong. He should have better class than that. He's a better guy than that. It was just terrible.
Yeah, that was just selfish on Pete Carroll's part. He didn't have to go out in public and say these things. I mean, he could have told his own coaching staff or maybe talked to Mark Sanchez in the private, but Mark Sanchez's stock is going to go way down in the NFL because they respect Pete Carroll's decision.
Now, which underclassmen should have stayed for their senior year to make themselves more NFL ready?
it seems a little silly, but I think Mark Sanchez was a pretty good bid. I think he should have stayed. I mean, I think the fact that he's going, it's not going to really be terrible for him. It's not going to be bad. But I think his thinking was that Sam Bradford is staying, Tim Tebow, Colt McCoy. So I think his thinking was that if those guys stay, he's got a better chance of going with a team unless he was with those guys, because those guys had better prospects than him. So if he goes now, he doesn't have to worry about being drafted after these guys with some team and just be a backup for a while. Here he's obviously trying to get a starting position in the NFL. So I think that's what his thinking was. But still, another year I think would have helped him just a little bit more.
Pete Carroll once said the things he said that if he didn't think Mark Sanchez would be better off staying another year. So obviously I think Sanchez would have been the best bet to stay another year. And probably I would have said the tight end from Oklahoma, Gresham, he would have been the number one pick. I mean, the number one tight end in this year's draft. So I say he should have went out because there's nothing really to gain for him to come back to school this year.
Now, Monday night, both of the NBA's two best players went head-to-head, Kobe Bryant and LeBron James, the Lakers coming out on top. Which player do you feel is better?
I'm going to have to say Kobe right now because of two main things. The fact that Kobe has been in the league for 12 years and he's got a name for himself, and 3 championship rings. Besides that, their stats are pretty much the same. LeBron's been in the league for about 5 years. They average just around the same points, assists, around the same minutes. Their shooting percent's about the same with their three-point shooting. The only difference is, I think, in a clutch situation, Kobe's a little bit better as far as the shot. But if you want someone to go to the hoop, draw a foul, and get an easy bucket, LeBron is your man. But Kobe has the slight edge only because he's been there, he's done that. LeBron is still trying to prove himself. He's got a name, he's done great, but he still doesn't have that ring. He still has that to prove until we can say he is better than Kobe. But he's right up there with him.
I got to say Kobe as well. I mean, he benefits more off his skill than what LeBron James does. I mean, they both have great skill, but LeBron James benefits more off of him being strong and his ability to drive to the hoop and get fouled or even get a three-point play. So I got to go with Kobe Bryant because, one, he has 3 championships to back it up, and 2, if in the clutch, I would definitely take Kobe Bryant to hit a game-winning shot over LeBron James. But they're both great players.
Now, college basketball has one undefeated team left, and that would be the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. Are they the best team in college basketball right now?
Not exactly. I think the Pittsburgh Panthers are right now because of a couple of reasons. Yes, they have 1 loss to a Louisville team that has been trying to pick up the pace after losing a couple games here and there. Now, the reason why Wake Forest, I don't think so, is because their schedule has been a little generous. Yes, they are undefeated. They've been getting things done. But I think Pittsburgh right now has the experience. They've been there before. They've done that. Wake Forest is still kind of young. They've looked great. Yes, I can't deny that. But I think Pitt, in the long run, is going to be better off. And Wake, they're strong now, but can they carry that throughout the season? This is new to them. But I think right now Pitt's got it.
I say Wake Forest, like you said, Parker, because they can just run down the court pretty fast. They can move the ball pretty well, and they have good defense to back it up. Yes, they might not have had that hard of a schedule, but you can only beat who you played. So I got to go with Wake Forest because, one, they beat UNC, and then they beat Clemson. And like Sean said, Pittsburgh, they lost to Louisville. So I can't go with Pittsburgh because they have 1 loss, so I got to go with number 1 team, Wake Forest.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, when you look at Wake, though, yes, you can't only beat who you play, but Pittsburgh's got a tough schedule, and UNC, they struggled for 2 games. It was not the same UNC team that everyone projected at the beginning of the season. That wasn't how they play basketball. That's not how they've been playing, and that's why they were able to beat them. Wake Forest was able to take advantage of a good situation and make a good team look bad. And that's great. Like, I'm not trying to take anything from them, but I think right now they have the edge only because they're undefeated. But I think overall, records aside, Pitt, I think, has the edge there.
Yeah, well, we'll find out how good Wake Forest is because they got a tough schedule coming up. We witnessed history in the making yesterday as the first African-American was elected President of the United States. If you were to direct a movie about Barack Obama, which actor do you feel would do the best job of portraying him?
I would say Terrence Howard. He has that serious look. Iron Man, he pulled it off so great, but I think he could also make a smile. Barack, I think, has that same sort of, I can't even think of the word, but he has that smiling ability. He's got a great smile. I think Terrence Howard has that too. So Terrence Howard would be my man.
I'm just going with the first person that comes to my mind, and that would be Denzel Washington. I mean, I don't know of anyone else to put in as Obama, so I'd just say Denzel.
Well, thanks, guys. That's all for this week. For Sean and Trevor, I'm Parker saying so long, everybody.